Okay, what is a hotspot? A hotspot is where the veil between worlds is thin, for lack of a better explanation. And there are quite a number of them, the San Luis Valley, Death Valley, parts of the Mogollon Rim, the Bradshaw Ranch was mentioned, the Black Hills of South Dakota, areas around Siskiyou County, Mount Shasta, Montauk, New York, out the tip of Long Island. Of course, the Uinta Basin. I was actually the first nationally known investigator to go up to the Skinwalker Ranch back in 1996 when it was a pristine case before the famous Zach Van Eck article came out. Zach asked me to go up and help the rancher and advise him on how to handle what he was dealing with. I could do a whole talk just on that, but I won't. Okay, what is a hotspot region? It's an area that has indigenous sacred sites and has sacredness in the history and prehistory of the indigenous people of the area. The San Luis Valley is quite interesting because it's the only area in North America where three major groups of Indians overlap. The Great Basin Indians, the Southwestern Indians, and the Great Plains Indians all came to the San Luis Valley during the warmer months to hunt, do vision quests, and basically gather sacred objects. They didn't hang around past the warmer months because I personally have seen 40 below, and when you live in a teepee and have moccasins on, it's not fun to live at 40 below. There is a culture of unexplained experiences and regional events that have been reported through the years in a hotspot region. And there always seems to be that darn government. They always seem to be involved. The military seems to always want to be involved there. They're expanding their presence. We'll talk about the military presence in the San Luis Valley and why my little friend right here might help us find out the level of technology that our government has already made operational and haven't told us about. One day, if I wake up and this thing has been destroyed by a particle beam weapon, I'll have to go back and see what it filmed in order to get me in trouble. Moving right along. This is the San Luis Valley looking from the south. It looks roughly football shaped. I don't have my pointer. Oops. But you can see it looks kind of football shaped there. Taos would be at the very bottom of the valley. At the very top of the valley would be Salida, just over the Pownship Pass. One thing that I've noticed in these areas is unusual geophysical properties. Any hotspot area that you go to, you're going to find unusual geophysical properties. In the case of the San Luis Valley, you have the close proximity of the Earth's magnetic field of minimum and maximum field strength close together. Along those seams is where we tend to have a preponderance of UFO activity. And in some of the areas further south, that's where a lot of our cattle cases have been reported. I don't have time to go into a lot of detail, but this is an area that of research that I've done a lot of work with. These types of unusual geophysical properties exist in Sedona. They exist up at the Black Hills. It's, I think, a very under-researched area of knowledge in the field. We need more people concentrating on science and less people concentrating on trying to drive the car forward by looking in the rearview mirror. Databases are great, reports are great, but we need to start getting proactive and we need to start looking forward through the windshield of the car of ufology instead of wasting our time with garbage in, garbage out databases. That's my own opinion. We can talk about that later if you'd like. Here's another image of the valley. This is more stylized, but it gives you an idea. The area is radar invisible under 18,000 feet. It's the largest alpine valley in the world. It's filled with water that goes down thousands and thousands of feet. It's the largest high altitude aquifer in the world. It has some of the most unusual features in North America, including the world's most unusual sand dune desert. The central song rays go up to 14,000 feet. There's 7 mountains that are 14,000 feet high are around the valley. The rest of them are 10 to 13. The northern Sangres there, you can see the Wet Mountain Valley, or as my friend David Perkins, who lives over there, he calls it the somewhat mysterious valley, which I think is kind of funny. That's a joke. Here's the Great Sand Dunes. They're 700 feet tall. They're pretty amazing. They're not quite sure how they got there. I had a physicist say, I know what it is. It's the underground home of the Indians. It's the ant people who care for the Indians underground. They're making more room by carving out the caverns, all the crystals, and they're powdering up all that glass, and they're throwing it out the back door. This is the largest pile of glass on the planet. This is 98.7, I think, percent pure glass. Digressing again. Blanca Peak is one of the sacred mountains of the Four Corners to the Dene people. The famous Rio Grande Gorge goes through the middle of the valley down to the Talos Pueblo, which is one of the oldest continuously inhabited dwellings in North America. There's some really cool spots. I had a friend who ran cattle up around Bishop's Rock. You can see there on the left of the rock formation, it looks like a bishop on a chessboard. Well, she would sit on the ledges there and kind of doze sometimes and meditate, watch her cattle when she would bring them up there during the summer months. One day she woke up and she was a quarter mile up the canyon, and she has no idea how she got there. Just to give you an idea of some of the locals' head-scratching stories. This is a really good place to do mushrooms. It really is. It's cubensis heaven. I'm telling you. I can tell you from experience that you really have to have your wits about you if you tend to do cubensis up at that level. Thank you. All right. Let's see if we got technology. Yes. Okay, the Sipapu, the place of emergence. Most people know that it is the most sacred site in North America. The Hopi and the Zuni claim that they emerged into this current fourth world in Grand Canyon, just up the Little Colorado River. Well, the northern Pueblo Indians along the Rio Grande have a tradition that the Sipapu is in the San Luis Valley. Well, Medno Creek is the only river creek in the world that has waves, disappears down a hole, and that hole is considered possibly the Sipapu. You can see Dollar Lake there is considered possibly one of the locations. There's all sorts of petroglyphs around the area that indicate humans have been going there for up to 13,000 years. Some of the oldest known evidence of humans in North America are found right to the west of the Great Sand Dunes. When they drilled down in the middle of the sand dunes back in the 70s to find out how deep they went, they hit an ancient forest that was buried by the sand, and they were all excited because what can you do? You can do carbon-14 dating with organic material. So they did the carbon-14 dated, and much to their shock and amazement, the trees had been covered up 11,000 years ago. So that 49 square mile of sand that goes up 700 feet is actually less. It was there before humans started visiting some of those meadows that exist in that part of the valley. And the sand dunes are actually younger than human occupation in the valley. There's weird structures. There's a 1,200-foot three-headed snake that is in an area that you can't go to during the warmer months because there are so many rattlesnakes there. This snake effigy is like 3 snakes coming off of one. It is terraformed naturally in the environment. The Smithsonian, or the head of the Smithsonian's archaeology department, Dennis Stanford, who recently died, him and his wife are amazed about this. They refused for years to comment on it publicly because it really shouldn't be there. There's these little beehives that are there that are very interesting. They look like piles of rocks, but when you go inside, they're perfectly smooth. And the doorways are only this high. And so I had a friend say, well, it's probably a leprechaun house. They run inside and roll the rock in front of the door, and nobody knows why they're there. They've been there at least since the 1870s, we know. So this is where I lived. Actually, for about 10 years, I lived in that house right there. This is a 14,000-foot mountain that's about 1.5 miles, 2 miles away. This just gives you kind of a sense of the magic and the majesty of the area. The largest Tibetan stupa, or Buddhist stupa, outside of Tibet or India is located there. The Undersecretary of the United Nations for the UN for the Environment, Maurice Strong, lived there. He owned the Baca Ranch, which is a huge ranch that's next door to the Crestone area. His wife has given away 40-acre parcels to 23, I think, of the world's great unbroken spiritual traditions. Many people consider the Crestone area where I live to be the UN of spirituality, if you will, the spiritual UN. Hannah, who's there at the bottom of the picture, invited me over to her house and said, get over here. Whatever you're doing, it's not as important as what you're going to be doing here when you get your research together, and get over here. And I went over there, and John Mack was leaving her house, and I thought, oh man, I just missed a chance to meet John Mack. Well, standing inside the doorway was Lawrence Rockefeller. I had the distinct pleasure to spend 2 days one-on-one with a billionaire, and I learned a lot about a lot of things. And just a quick aside, we ran out of paranormal stuff to talk about after 2 days, and I mentioned this new thing called the internet, and I asked him, deadpan, seriously, I said, Mr. Rockefeller, why do so many people on the internet think your little brother David is the Antichrist? And he started laughing, was unable to stop. He started turning blue. They took him inside. He was 89 years old. They took him inside. They laid him down. They brought in a doctor. Hannah was furious. She didn't get a chance to ask him for money. He left on his Gulfstream that afternoon. He left 2 days early. I went home. I told my girlfriend, I think I just killed Lawrence Rockefeller with a joke. This is a true story. 2 days later, one of those little Western Union guys knocked on my door and handed me a letter with a big fatty check in it. And he went on to fund my research for 2 years. And I wouldn't tell people about that for quite a while. I think I'm one of 5 people that he actually funded. I didn't tell people because I didn't want people to, number one, get jealous, and number 2, think I was in an alphabet agency or something. So whatever. Just figured I'd toot my horn there a little bit. Well, of course, the arrival of the first Europeans, the Spanish, in the late 1500s, well, actually mid-1500s, they came all the way up the Rio Grande, Onate. They founded Santa Fe, which is now considered the oldest city in the United States, the oldest European city. They did make it all the way up to Taos, New Mexico, like I said, at the bottom of the valley, but they would not go further. However, some expeditions were done secretly to find gold, and gold was discovered. And I have in my second book a chapter on treasure legends that would blow your mind. It's really fascinating, some of the treasure legends that are there. Well, I mentioned that this is a very, very remote place, right? It's ringed by mountains. 60 miles I had to go to the nearest stoplight, to the nearest supermarket, nearest drugstore, nearest movie theater, nearest hospital. Well, TV didn't even arrive there till I think the early 80s. There was no TV there unless you had a big, one of those big giant analog satellite dishes. Well, when the Spanish were kicked out of the Taos Pueblo in 1680, they fled to the hills around the Pueblo because the Indians wanted to slaughter them. And many of the ones that fled were the priests and some of the missionaries. And as they started these little secret towns in the mountains, slowly over the generations, their form of Christianity began to change. And so now today, the most fundamentalist of all Christians still live in the mountains surrounding Taos, Chuchis, and the towns of Chuchis, Listablis, Pataka. And this is not a place that you want to go trick-or-treating on Halloween. These are very, very serious people. They'll walk naked in long lines across cactus patches, barefoot. They flog themselves like the Islamists do on Ramadan, or the cat o' nine tails. They have very, very unusual belief systems. They actually crucify one of their members, or used to, on Good Friday, and it would be considered a supreme honor to be the one selected to be crucified. And I don't know how many people have been around New Mexico and seen those white crosses on the hill, but so-called legends say that that's where a penitent brother died on the cross. Most of them didn't die, but some did. This is the only known photograph of a penitente ceremony. It was done by an editor of the LA Times, who was immediately shot and almost killed seconds after this picture was taken. Well, I mentioned that north of Taos, there's some weird belief systems, and I'm not joking. Right here on the border, for instance, is San Antone Peak, the largest freestanding mountain in the world. It's filled with lava tubes, and the Tewa people think that that's where Creator lives. And when Creator comes out up into the realm of humans, he usually lives in the mountain. He's really big, he's really hairy, and he smells really bad. And so I find it very interesting that quite a large percentage of our Bigfoot sightings in the Southern Rockies happen right around this particular mountain, including these tracks in the snow. The Bigfoot there in our area hunt elk, and they're actually very good hunters. There's not much to eat there for Bigfoot in a semi-arid desert that sometimes in some areas only gets 4 inches of moisture a year. So in the mountains surrounding the area, they're looking for whatever they can find to eat. Well, everybody's heard of skinwalkers, right? Well, we've got skinwalkers, and I could tell you a really interesting story about having a run-in with a skinwalker when I was investigating a case of occult crime and Navajo sorcery. I became the object of attention of a skinwalker. I had some very troubling things happen to me, which I don't have time to get into. Let's just say when I took a shower in my greenhouse, my bathroom still wasn't finished, and I had to shower in my greenhouse, and I had all these glass windows facing the west, and the sun had just set, and it was this beautiful, orange sky, and I had a little 25-watt bulb, and I'm all soaped up, and I see a humanoid form with antlers slide all the way across my windows about 10 feet away from me. It's the only time I have ever gotten out of the shower and not rinsed off. Seriously. I mentioned shapeshifters. Shapeshifters, I believe, this particular aspect of the paranormal is and could be the most important aspect because it ties together almost all divergent paranormal phenomena feature shape-shifting. That's why I wrote a book called Stalking the Tricksters, because tricksters are famous, infamous shapeshifters. Again, this is a whole part of my research that I really am very fascinated by, but we're talking technology today, so I'm going to continue on. We have some of the most unusual lenticular cloud formations that you'd ever want to see that rival Mount Shasta and some of the volcanoes in the Cascades. But I was driving down the road outside at Crestone one day, and I looked over, and right above the sand dunes about 20 miles away was this 7-mile cloud. My brother was sitting next to me, and I had one of them, this is back in the early 90s, so I had one of those box cameras, those cardboard box cameras, which I always had, in case something happened, I wanted to have a camera handy. So I said, bro, I think we should take a picture of that. There's no other cloud in the sky, and that thing looks like a perfect saucer. So I got out and I stopped and I took a picture of it and got back in, and we're driving along, and about 300-400 yards later, we make the turn around to go to the ranch, and we look over, it was gone. And it was like just seconds. And now how does a 7-mile cloud disappear in less than a minute or two? It was quite fascinating. Well, when clouds are seen, like this type of lenticular cloud, there's a tradition in the south end of the valley that if the cloud ships are around, as they call them, the lenticular clouds, that means that there's going to be UFO activity. So there's a correlation that they have between the cloud shape and actual appearances of saucer-type craft. And when they see a craft hover in one spot, they instantly summon all their family and their relatives, because wherever it hovers, if they go and dig, there's treasure underneath. I love that. I think that's such a cool tradition, only found in the San Luis Valley. When a UFO hovers, dig for treasure. I've seen 2 Spanish coins allegedly found in this manner. I wasn't there when they dug it up, so I can't comment. Well, here's me about a week before I started getting involved in all this craziness. If I had known then what I know now about how much progress or lack of progress I would have made in 25 years, I probably wouldn't have gotten involved in this field. There's too many tchotchke things. There's too many true believers. I'm not interested in helping formulate the new religion of the 21st century. The Space Brothers aren't coming down to save you. They're not coming down to solve all your problems. The evil reptoids are probably dinosaurs that own the place. So if they want to come back and take it over, they have every right to. There are some things about the field of ufology that trouble me. Many people who know me know how outspoken I am about this. And quite frankly, I think we need to really start to think about our motivations of being interested in these subjects and what they mean for our culture. Again, I'm very proud of this database. It's the largest database, possibly the largest database of unusual experiences from a single geographic region, and Druffel may have a larger database from the LA Basin. In fact, she probably does. But she's been around for 90-something years, a lot longer than I have. Well, I'm also really interested in finding location-specific portals. I can say to you that I have found one. I know a place that's it's about a 100-yard diameter circle. I took Rosemary Guiley there, and I scared the bejesus out of her, which was really hard to do. I don't know how many of you know or were friendly with the late Rosemary Guiley. She was, without question, the most talented field investigator that I have ever had the pleasure of working with. And when I brought her up to the San Luis Valley, she gave me an education, believe me, and she will really be sorely missed. And I'm really, really sad to know that my friend Rosemary is no longer with us. However, this is the spot that I'm talking about, and it was just below zero. It was a very cold night, so whatever that orb-looking thing is not an insect out of focus. This was taken with a regular camera, not a digital camera. Carol in the purple coat happened to see it over Brian and my head. She said, "Quick, take a picture." Brian's wife took the picture. There's a close-up of it. We have no idea what it was, but right after that, the flying martini olive showed up. And I'm asking Brian and Carol, what is a giant olive, flying martini olive doing flying around this area here? And you see the white light that's at the top of the picture? Here's a close-up of the olive. That was a light worm that was wiggling around in the sky all around us. And then all of a sudden the other orb showed up. I don't know what those orbs were. That we were being very careful not to raise any dust. There was no wind. It's not pollen from the juniper trees. And other phenomena have been reported in the area. Just around the corner from there is what I call prairie dragon curve. I'm standing there talking to a group of people that forced me to, they offered me too much money for me to turn down to give them a tour of the valley. So I said, okay, I'll walk around, take you around. And I stopped here because these undulating forms that are about this long, they kind of have a shape of like a sea slug. They're opaque in the middle. They're kind of translucent on the end. They have kind of sort of appendages, like similar to ribbons on their sides or wings. And I said, this is where people constantly are seeing these prairie dragons, as I call them. And there was a woman photographer who snapped 5 photographs. And in one of the photographs, look at the lower right-hand corner of the picture. Here you have 2 prairie dragons. And these are not, this is not some sort of over-the-shoulder aberration reflection because there was no way, the way the cars were parked on the other side of the road, that they could have been reflecting the sun here. I've had several analysts look at this, and they scratched their head and said, we can't explain what they are. So I guess I have to call them prairie dragons for lack of something better. In 1967, something very important happened in the San Luis Valley. But right at the same time, that first weekend of September, more people were tripping on psychedelics than probably any other time in history. And I find the height of the Summer of Love being the same weekend of the Snippy the horse case, which is the typhoid Mary of cattle mutilations. I find the juxtaposition of dates very interesting, or the correlation of dates very interesting. We had a mass awakening and an expansion of consciousness. We also may have opened up a door for something. And we all know about magic mushrooms. I'm sure most of us have heard of cubensis, psilocybin. I used to grow them extensively when I was in high school in Washington State. And every morning when I go out to feed the livestock, I'd pull the tarp back and see if one had a lesson for the day. Usually one did. And my junior year, it was a little difficult because my first class was power mechanics. And so that made life a little interesting, first period. Well, psilocybin prefers to grow in cattle manure. I have a whole theory about that, which I won't go into today, but here's the Snippy case that happened in the San Luis Valley. This is a very important, pivotal event. I cover it extensively in my book, Stalking the Herd, which is the only real objective book that covers the entire cattle mutilation phenomenon, not just 2%, 5% of the data that have lights or maybe strange objects seen or claims of aliens. One of the things that I was hoping to hear Chuck mention is the first thing you do when you go on site to a cattle mutilation investigation is you look for cut hair follicles. No insect, no animal, no bird can cut hair in a straight line. Okay, litmus test, that's right there. You want to know if it's real? Look for cut hair. Nothing can do that except something with intelligence and a sharp implement. So there are ways to cut to the chase, shall we say, and not have to guess about things. Anybody interested in buying Snippy the horse? Snippy is articulated and is mounted. And I had one, they tried to put it on eBay for $18,000. And some Japanese guy bid, I think, $1,800. And when they asked him why he wanted it, he said, it would make a great tie rack. Whatever that means. It'd make a great lawn ornament. Something interesting for your neighbors to look at. It's a tough job, but somebody's got to do it. Out of 200 mutilation cases, that I was called out on, 40 of them had cut hair follicles and evidence that something with intelligence did it. Out of those 40, there was 7, 8, 9 of them were really bizarre, really strange. They scared me. They scared the investigating officers. And they also, one of them scared the head of the New York State Veterinary College. And he says, I don't know what the hell you just sent me, but I can't explain it. So there are ways to properly investigate these cases that don't have to do with calling the media and saying that aliens have come back and they're mutilating livestock. I have a problem with this whole idea of aliens. What if I told you that we were the aliens and that what we think are aliens are actually more terrestrial than we are? Would that piss you off, maybe? Would you get excited? Would you want to, like, meet me after class and go, what did you mean by that? Well, aliens and the ETH, or the extraterrestrial hypothesis, have been running roughshod and stamping on creative thinking in this field for 70 years. I'm tired of it. I think we need to start getting creative. I think we need to start putting our heads together, working together as a team, and figure this thing out. And instead of being a lot of individuals running around thinking that we've solved all the mysteries of the universe, and it's the benevolent space brothers who are here to solve all our problems for us. Okay? You're sitting in the pews of the new church of the 21st century. Okay? They don't have a soapbox here, too bad. I'll get off it now. I love this little guy. The alien stomp. Well, it must be aliens. God, they've been saying that since the 50s. They rape our women. They abduct our children. George Adamski thought that they, were benevolent space brothers. I know somebody that knows how he hoaxed most of his photographs. He did have some real events in the very beginning of his career where he did take real films, and he did take a couple of real photographs. But this one is a fake. And what he did was took highly radioactive radium paint and painted an object and hung it and photographed it. I'm in search of answers, okay? And there is a way to go about properly investigating these wonderful subjects, including UFOs. Here's some examples of how some of these objects seem to appear in conjunction with your tax dollars. These are pictures that have been taken from the San Luis Valley. You'll look at this next, we'll go back here. I think I can go back. There we go. This is the Levita military operations area. If you look carefully, you'll notice that this is the San Luis Valley here. And then this is the Sangre de Cristo Mountains. This low-level flight operations training area now extends out to the Sangres and down to Blanca Peak now. So like I said about hotspot areas, the military is always trying to expand further into hotspot areas. This is where we train all our Air National Guard pilots. This is where we rent out airspace to the Israelis and to the Germans, and where they train their pilots for low-level flight operations. It's an area where they trot out exotic covert aerial craft to see if what people think about them. I have seen these craft with my own eyes. I've seen conventional craft lit up like Christmas trees. And I think that they are really attempting to find out the psychological impact of these craft on the population of a rural petri dish like the San Luis Valley. It's a perfect petri dish for studying societal events and other things. So we're going to continue on. I don't have enough time to go too far. What time do I have to go to? 11:45? Oh, we're doing great. Well, they're only supposed to fly at 500 feet or above, in the San Luis Valley. Here's an example of a plane that's only flying about 400 feet. I had one of these guys come by me. I heard the air ripping off the hull of the plane, the skin of the plane. I was up 4 stages of scaffolding on a 2x12 board, painting the top of a 4-story house. He went by and smiled at me. And of course, the first thing I did was I belly flopped onto that 2x12 because I knew what was coming right behind him, and it almost shook me off the board. And then the guy came around and did it again. So be careful when you're painting your house, your vacation house in the San Luis Valley. Okay. The only time I ever got in trouble, besides that time with the skinwalker, which I don't have time to go fully into, but the only other time I got into trouble is when I started looking into this subject. And it's not the aliens and the skinwalkers that are particularly scary. It's the humans. It's the people. It's the guys that walk into your house and they aren't carrying a suitcase full of old $100 bills. They look like they came out of Central Casting, and they have cards that say that they're directors from the Institute of Social Architecture, and they want to know why you are getting involved in digging into things that most people don't have a need to know. And you should start questioning your motivations. What do you notice about this photograph here? Each one of these red dots is an indication. I don't know how well you can see it here, but each one of these red dots shows evidence of or stories of underground entrances. Here's the Sapapu here. This is an underground spot near Ute Mountain in the Rio Grande Gorge. Crestone has a place where semi-trucks were seen going out for 2 weeks out into the grants in the valley and not coming out. And there were stories of trucks going underground there. Each one of these dots has an interesting alignment. Notice how NORAD up here and all these lines, they kind of go straight. Notice how these lines go straight. It's almost like that there's a tunnel system going on. And there is a theory that we do have a maglev train system that's underground that connects many of our main military facilities and is used by the elite to get around very quickly. I'm not sure if that's true. I can't prove it. A person named Richard Sauter, who wrote a book called Underground Bases and Tunnels, What is the Government Trying to Hide? I recommend that book highly. He showed me this picture and asked me, what do you think's wrong with this picture, Chris? What's wrong with this picture? What the hell is the Air Force doing drilling underground tunnels? Now, that's not photoshopped on there. That's a real photograph. Again, underground bases and tunnels, what is the government trying to hide? If you find a used copy on Amazon, buy it. These are some of the places that I'm almost certain have underground facilities. This is a place just on the other side of the Sangre de Cristos where we had the horrendous spring fire a year and a half ago. This is again where the moss saw lives, the creator. This smells bad when he comes out. Well, this guy, Darth Cheney, as I would like to refer to him, all of a sudden one summer, we started seeing all these Halliburton trucks in the middle of BF nowhere. BF means bum. My term. I should trademark it. So BF nowhere, all of a sudden we started getting these weird earthquakes. Remember the earthquake that happened in Virginia? Near Charlottesville? That was what about the early 2000s? Okay, sorry about that. The same day we had a really massive earthquake that occurred on the border of Colorado and New Mexico. And then over the ensuing days, we had other earthquakes that also occurred there. Well, that's a geologically stable area. And I asked the ex-head of the Colorado School of Mines how to explain these earthquakes. And he said, well, it's simple. They're obviously building something under there. So if you go online, you'll notice that on Google Earth, just go SLV hotspots, Christopher Obrien. You'll notice that there's a purple area that's lined out, and I have a warning on there. Investigate this area at your own risk. Okay, that's one of the areas that I would suggest using caution. There are really nice, 4-lane roads, gravel roads there in the middle of nowhere. Nobody lives there. There's no reason for these roads to be there. There's tons of like I said, Halliburton truck activity. I haven't spent enough time there. I can't tell you what's going on. I find it highly suspicious, but what can you do? I've always thought this is a real photograph. Evidently, this is not. This is a hoaxed photograph. But how much does the government really know about UFOs? I think the government knows more than we do, actually quite a bit more than we do. That's why they're quite a bit more confused about it than we are. Okay? Your level of knowledge is equal to your level of confusion when it comes to the subject of UFOs. Okay, that's my little, I guess, formula. We're going to go through some quick shots here. A farmer's driving along, happens to have his camera with him, gets a shot of this pretty good sized, he said it was about a 40-foot disc that flew by. This is the famous Lobo light that shows up behind Taos every now and then. This thing is about 3 or 4 miles long. It's a biggie. UFOs have plasma around them normally. And this is, just to give you, this is a real UFO. That's not. Okay? That's a real UFO. Notice the plasma? That's not. If you look carefully, George Adamski screwed up, and where he glued the ping pong ball, some of the glue actually squeezed out, and so you can see where he messed up right there if you look carefully. I think it's important for people to understand that the 50s version of UFOs, flying saucers, makes it very easy for someone knowledgeable like myself to immediately identify hoaxes, because people still think UFOs are flying around in Earth versus the flying saucers. And to me, it's so ridiculous to see some of these sites, like, what's that, the Phase of Moon and then Secure Team, and all these, there's a whole list of sites that I warn people about. And it's very, very easy to see the ones that are hoaxed and faked. Occasionally, 1% maybe, you'll see some real true UFO photographs and videos, but they're extremely rare compared to all the hoaxes. And now with this incredible ability that we have, to go ahead and put words in people's mouths, put faces on people, have them say things that are not really true, we're going to have a harder and harder and harder time actually trying to differentiate between what's real and what's not. However, there are artifacts in real footage and in real photographs that give away the essence of the element of time compression in UFO sightings. UFOs are operating in a different time frame than we are. And if you know what you're looking for, you can actually see ghost imaging of these craft. And this is telltale signs of a photograph or a film clip or video clip rather being real. This is Tim Edwards. He filmed a spider web that was refracting the light. I figured out how he did it. I've duplicated this footage. Of course, 23 people around the state saw a huge, massive UFO that day, but I don't know if it was this. There's another light in the sky. What is it? That's the moon. Jacques Vallée's always been one of my favorites. He's always been, I think, very careful on how he couches some of his theories and some of his thoughts. But he does have an interesting concept of metalogic, and there's something very illogical about metalogic, and I really do encourage all of you to read Dimensions, to read Revelations, to read Confrontations, and to read his magnus opus, Passport to Magonia. If you don't, you're not really interested in the subject. You're interested in pop culture and pop culture belief. Now, check this guy out in 53. Is that a haircut or what? This dude got the girls, okay? He definitely did. I finally had the pleasure of meeting the man, and he has been very helpful, and I consider him an unofficial consultant for what we call the UFO data acquisition project. It's a series of triangulated high-definition cameras, pan-tilt zoom, or, like this little guy, a 96-degree wide-angle camera that's fixed, because you don't always need to have one that goes around and shoots in and out and pans and zooms and tilts. Some places that you want to monitor only requires a camera like this. So we have a variety of cameras for different applications, and when people are going to be getting systems from us, they're going to be helped out by designing the actual system that saves you the money, so you don't have to spend extra money on gear that you don't need. We're going to get into that in a minute. We have all sky cameras that have 360-degree fisheye lenses, so it sees the entire sky. Those are really good for alerting us for potential events. We have custom detection, record on motion software. You can plug in tri-field meters. You can plug in amplified antennas, tri-field meters with amplified antennas. We already in this box, you see it's based on Raspberry Pi. Let me show you how it kind of works. I'm going to shake it here, and I didn't calibrate it yet. It should turn red when I change the gravity. This has a recording gravitometer in it. It also has a recording magnetometer in it. It has the same package that the ISS space station has for temperature, humidity, and barometric pressure. You can plug additional equipment into it through these powered Ethernet ports that are on the side here. I'm not going to get too much into the tech because I'm not an engineer. I do have a very good one who designed this equipment. He spent 260-something days writing over 1,200 lines of code. This is a very, very sophisticated system. We're also going to be starting to look for extremely low frequency signals when these objects make sudden right-hand turns or left-hand turns or stop on a dime. They do have atmospheric effects that are on a very deep acoustic level of very, very large bass waves. I want to do a dampened radar unit. I talked to Kevin Day this morning about putting together a radar unit that, like the cameras, will move with the object, and I dampen down 350 degrees of the sweep of the radar and have a window that's pointing and shooting radar and getting radar reflections and returns off the object or the event. We also want to have analog cameras that have blaze gratings on them, so we can take the light coming from some of these objects and separate it into its constituent spectra. These are all terms and attempts to come up with data that scientists would like to see. And if we can duplicate it, 2 sightings, if we can get 1 sighting recorded and then do another one, we can go to a scientist, an optical physicist, and say, what do you think of this? And he'll take it to a friend, and he'll take it to a friend. We'll get some peer review, and maybe we'll start to get some real serious interest by the scientific and academic community that doesn't have to do with this little guy. Anyway, we're going to have a laser experiment to see if these objects have gravitational fields that are strong enough to actually bend light. We have flight radar 24, which will give us indications of whether we have any transpondered aircraft in the area. And according to Jacques Vallée, he has told us that he will help us get an inside track on space.com so that if we do have an event, we can order up images from space of the area where the event occurred at the time the event actually was logged. So this is pretty exciting stuff. Nobody's done this yet. A lot of people have talked about it. The first person to really come up with the idea was back in 1973. This is the imitable, I don't know. Anyway, Ray Stanford is, I think, the most important person in ufology. He put together a $2-point-something million system that had old analog video cameras and telescopes and laser units, and they had a radar tower that they had radar going. And he is the only person in history who has been able to get from not 1 but 2 sighting events, recorded gravity data, recorded magnetic data, recorded optical data, and the actual sweep in the AM band wave length of how the craft are actually affecting radio waves when they do really dramatic turns and stop on a dime. One of the sighting events that they had that they weren't able to get gravity data was this particular event that they actually bounced a laser off of a UFO. Of course, now you get thrown in federal prison for attempting to do this. But Ray is the real deal, and he is an unsung hero. He has been showing his data that he's been gathering and analyzing for the past 12 years. He has 49 films of UFOs that he's been taking since 1956. He's one of the most observant people on the planet. He's discovered more dinosaur tracks, for instance, than any other living human, including the most important paleontological find ever in history that was found on the grounds of the Goddard Space Flight Center. It was in all the newspapers, CBS, NBC, ABC, PBS all covered it. And his hobby is looking down. His passion is looking up. And he has been analyzing his UFO films ever since I met him almost 20 years ago. And he has been showing them to Goddard Space Flight Center scientists. His wife worked at Goddard for almost 40 years. She was in charge of refurbishing the Hubble Space Telescope. And so Ray has been slowly sharing his data with bona fide scientists. We are attracting some serious academic and scientific attention. And that's why I think the whole idea of hard data investigation and research is really important. These little guys are fun, okay? They are. I like them. They kind of make me itch in places I don't know where to scratch, but I do think that we need to grow and progress a little bit in our process as a culture when it comes to the ufological subject. Here's a picture of myself, Chief Mahudi, or Horn Dog, as I like to call him. Where is he? You out there? You out there? Yeah, he's here. All right. Clifford's a great guy. He took us up to Zuni with my partner in the SLV camera project, which is the project before UFODAP. And unfortunately, Wayne here on the right, we lost him he died about 2.5 months ago, and I'm very saddened that he's not going to see the success of this project. Here is some animation that shows you the kind of, well, first of all, yeah, here, look at this. Let's look at this first. Now, if I was unscrupulous, I would be touting this as a really good orb sighting. You see that thing going across the sky there? You see it? See it right there? You know, I'm going to play it again. It comes into the frame right there. I'm going to play it again, and I want you to tell me what you see. See where it comes in. There it is. Where is it? There it is. Now, if I had cut those first 4 or 5 frames out, that little 2-man helicopter would be a UFO. Yeah? Now, why all of a sudden did it turn into a silver sphere? Well, the angle of the sun hit a curved canopy and bloomed the light, and the camera picked it up as a light bloom. And so what the average person would think was that they just saw a silver sphere fly across the frame. Now, I am not unscrupulous. I'm in this for answers. I'm not in this to make money or get notorious. So I didn't clip the beginning of the clip off. I didn't take the beginning off. And I decided to show this as an example of how a conventional object can fool even people that are trained observers. I've shown this to trained observers, and they thought it was a UFO until I pointed out very carefully that no, it's a 2-man helicopter. Okay, here's something else. Here's our cameras. The little camera in the middle is the less expensive version of the big one here. It doesn't have the 30 times optical zoom capability. It only has 12 times, but for a lot of applications, that's all you need. We have some other pictures here. Here is what the tracking software looks like. Let's see if I can get some pictures here so you can see it in action. Here we go. Oh, there it is. The bounding box sees the plane taken off from Burbank Field, and it keeps it in the middle of the frame. And as the plane flies by, it zooms in, and you have a tracking system. Now, if I get an order from Yemen or Croatia or some country that may want to use this software for nefarious purposes, I might have to think twice. But we already have interest from Switzerland, Australia, Canada. I have a radio astronomer in Bologna, Italy that wants a system. And we also have interest from all around the United States. Here's a map that shows you why we picked the San Luis Valley as our location for the first system so that we can get the bugs out of it. What we're working on right now is called deep learning. What we're doing is we're teaching the software how to identify airplanes, how to identify birds, how to identify insects. And the more practice they get from identifying these mundane objects, the smarter they become. And so we're going to have false positives, events that occur that aren't real high strange events. But as we get further down the road, teaching the software with deep learning techniques, we will have less and less false positives. And the systems will feature constant upgrades and user support from our engineer, Ron Olch. And I think that's very important to keep in mind, because a lot of times you buy something and they go, well, we can't help you with that, son. We will help you with the system. Now, what you're seeing here is a map of the San Luis Valley. Now, you see those little flying saucers? Each one of those is 5 sightings. So that gives you an idea of how much activity has been going on over there, at least since I've been involved. And these are only the sightings since the 90s. This particular, we have a second camera set up. Our first camera is right here at the UFO watchtower. How perfect. Our second camera is here, but the guy, it's up halfway up a cell tower, but the guy that owns the cell tower won't let us turn it on because he's afraid the Chinese are going to hack his AmigoNet ISP. So we have to take it down, and we're gonna put it right where that saucer is right there, and then we're going to have a third camera right by the Great Sand Dunes, so that we have triangulation here. What's important about more than one camera is we have software in here that's based on GPS. So if you have an object flying and you have 2 cameras on it, all of a sudden on your computer screen you have a map shows up, and it shows the location of the cameras, and it shows their line of sight to the object, and then it shows where the object is going. So that's called triangulation. It's very, very important, and that's how you that's how you can determine altitude, azimuth, speed, size, direction, all kinds of wonderful theodolite-based information. One of our other consultants is Ron Reguer, helped design the optics for our spy satellites. Also helped design the stage 2 of the Apollo rocket, was involved in engineering manuals for the DSP spy satellite, was actually there when the 1976 Iranian UFO encounter occurred, was actually there looking at the data come in from the spy satellite. We've had a variety of cool events that have occurred in the valley. This is a drawing by a commercial airline pilot who saw a morphing object over the Sangre de Cristos. We have high-flying objects that morph that have been photographed by a very talented photographer with a telescope named Michael McLaughlin. Some examples of some of the shots that he's gotten. That one always kind of bugged me. It's kind of freaky. Here's a shot that was just taken a month before we put our camera in. Here's another shot from that same sighting. The following night, she got this shot. And we're really looking forward to having these systems put around the world. They're all going to be connected through the UFODAS system. And when people buy these cameras, we're going to be pooling our data and supplying analytical services with people like Ray Stanford, Mark D'Antonio, and others, possibly Jacques Vallée, if we can get him, get some of his time to look at some of our better evidence. So this is really the future, I think, of instrumented ufology. I really am happy that we did have some folks show up. I know this isn't a sexy subject like some of the things that we've been talking about and listening about today, or this weekend. But I want to thank everybody very much for your attention. And if you have any questions, you can go ahead and fire them at me. We have just a couple of minutes left. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Hi, Christopher. You showed your electromagnetic map of various places.
Right.
I have been shown a map of the East Ranch area up in southern Washington near Mount Adams, and I have seen the seam that goes between the flux lines. Right. And that is really, I mean, the place, the 70 acres that James Gilliland has is a Bigfoot preserve.
Right.
I've been there many days and nights, and I just wonder if you have any insight to what's going on up there.
Well, one of the places that is on our short list to actually put a system in is the triangle between the northwestern corner of the Yakima Indian Reservation, Mount Adams, and Trout Lake. That is a very active area. There is a sky cam up there already, and we would really like to get a system up there. Wayne Hollenbeck, who died recently, that was his wish before he said, look, if you have a chance to get a system there, please for me do that. So yes, I believe that is a very active area. And although much of what they see at East Eddy Ranch are planes turning their landing lights on headed south, and also planes turning their landing lights headed north. There are 2 airports that happen to be in the wrong place, and there is some confusion what's real up there and what's not. So,
yes, okay, thank you.
Hi, Chris. I'm Leela Hutchison, and I have contacted you about my research down in the Chihuahuan Desert on the 105 longitude line.
Right.
And I was just wondering if you have, with all your data and studies over the years, have correlated any number of incidences on that longitudinal line between the 105 and the 106 that runs through the San Luis Valley, through Crestone, actually up to Devil's Tower.
I really haven't, and I understand. I've been listening to Chuck Zukowski's information, and I kind of have to disagree with some of the correlations that have been thrown out there with latitude and longitude lines. The 37th parallel, for instance, the 37th parallel is the 11th most reported UFO latitude line, and the heaviest concentration of cattle mutilations in North America have been between the 41st and 43rd latitude lines. Since 2000, thousands and thousands of cases have happened down in northern Argentina and southern Brazil. But talk to me later after we're done. I have to go now to make the schedule work. I really want to thank everybody again. Come see me at the table if you'd like. Thank you.